Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the KNKL Show. Today is episode 39, I do believe so. And to start things off, you may be wondering why World of Warcraft is playing behind me once again. And I will sum that up by saying, we are going to be throwing another party in the World of Warcraft next Sunday, July 1st, to celebrate and kick off our summer vacation. So as you can see here, there are tons of really cool things that we're going to be able to do here. It's going to be taking place in Ajara at a place called Galliwick's Pleasure Palace. And fear not, I will show you how to get there on your own, and I will be able to transport you to the actual place. I mean, this place is freaking awesome. I mean, look, you got a pool, you got a spa, you got a sauna, and hookah, and what else? A pool toy. Heck yeah. So we are going to have an awesome time. And at the end of the night, I mean, you're going to be tuning into a live stream as usual, and you're going to be listening to the music that's going to be being DJ'd throughout the party. But then at the end of the night, we're all just going to relax in the spa area, and we are going to be doing a live Q&A session through the live stream, and you guys will be basically typing your questions to me throughout. So we are going to have an awesome time, and I will post a video after this saying how we are going to basically meet up and get to this place. So, with that out of the way, yes, episode 39. Let us move on. So, first thing I want to talk about, woo, look at that, 2415, baby. Now that is a good number. Thank you very much for everyone who has continued to watch the show and tell your friends about it. It is very, very, what's the word? Fulfilling. That's the word I was looking for. Moving on to the Twitter. I bug you guys about this all the time. I don't really post anything crazy on here about how I'm feeding my dog or petting my cat, but I will let you know when I am uploading videos, and you can, be sure to expect that if you subscribe. Moving on to the best part. This is my personal favorite. The Facebook. So, once again, thank you guys to each and every one of you, especially this handsome man, Michael Adam. That is a very nice self-portrait. Maybe you could do one of me, too, doing this. Yes. Moving on. Yes. These are absolutely amazing. I mean, look at this. Cam McDonald. This guy is an absolute baller. I love this guy. Freaking awesome. Look at that. Realistic anime. Awesome. Ashley Neely and Jessica Baker. Thank you guys so much for posting your things on the Facebook. Never ceases to amaze me. Continue to do so. It makes me happy. With all that out of the way, we are going to be going into our tutorial. And today's tutorial is going to be covering a subject that has been requested many a time. And that subject matter is noses. Noses. How do you draw those things? How do you draw? I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you a very, very easy way to draw noses from all different angles. And just a few key things that you want to remember whilst rendering the nose. So, without further ado, we will begin. New document. Layer over top, darken the background so it's easy on the eyes. And let's work with like bluish gray. Yeah, I like that. Okay, so first thing we're going to talk about is, too much radiation on the brain, man. I'm slurring my speech a lot as of late, and it's really been bothering me. I don't know what it is. Too much video games. Too much League of Legends on the brain. So, as we have said before, back when we were drawing just the usual faces, right? We'd always like kind of divide it, right? And that's kind of where your eyes would go, right? Kind of in this area. But now, today, I want to focus specifically, zooming in on it. Specifically, we're going to be focusing on the nose today. So, the first thing that you want to do is, let's see, First, maybe we should talk about placement of the nose. Let's talk about placement, yes. Okay, so, there's a lot of like tutorials out there that will talk about you know, like making a circle. And here, let me start this over. There's a lot of tutorials out there that talk about like perfect measurements, right? Perfect measurements of the face. And, you know, while I like some of it, like say how they divide this circle in half, you know, it's like they make a circle and then they add like a little egg shape down here, right? And then they say the eyes go like a little bit below that, or halfway between, you know, the shape that you've created. But as I've said in previous dailies, you know, not everybody has the same face. So it's always good to, you know, just use those things as basic guidelines and then kind of, you know, kind of feel free to experiment outside of that. But the one thing that I really do like about this is when you create this circle and then you add this little egg shape to represent, you know, the jaw and the chin, the nose usually, the bottom of the nose usually falls right around this area, right at the curve of that circle. So, just as a general rule of thumb, that's how I like to place my noses. Now, so, moving on. Let's get rid of these guidelines, get rid of those. So now you can see basically what's underneath that. And from here, we will begin to sketch in what will be our nose. So the first thing that we want to talk about is laying down. Usually I start with just this simple shape. It's sort of like a crescent. And what this represents is the bottom of the nose followed by the cast shadow that it's casting. Casting shadows. Yes. Followed by just these little, you know, suggestion of nostrils, right? Those little things on the end there. And here, let me draw a bigger one over here, just so it can show you basically what's happening. So I start with this here, right? This is the bottom of the nose. Draw in those little suggestion of nostrils, right? And then the cast shadow that's happening. Then what I like to do is, if you'll notice on a lot of noses, especially if you look at mine, the way that it works is when it hits the nostril, it's like, let me show you kind of what some people do that's not right. Some people do noses like this, like they draw them like straight across, and then like these represent the nostrils, and then they'll draw this, and then it's like, oh, where do you go from here? Do you draw it like that? Because then they continue to try to draw the bridge, you know, and then you end up with like this kind of weird looking thing. And really what you're exercising when you're drawing these noses is line economy. Basically, you're trying to convey an idea with as little lines as possible, especially when it comes to noses, on guys and girls. So the easiest way I found to do this is to draw like this line here, and then as it curves up and then down, right, like that. And then this curves around like that, right? Then you can kind of shade this in like that, right? And then I like to kind of erase underneath it to kind of create this feeling of like bounce light, you know, just really quickly while I'm sketching. So what that gives you is, okay, this is the underplane, obviously. Then this is the nostril, okay? That's happening here. Then going up, what I like to do here. So we'll take that and we'll move on over to the face. Let me show you how that translates to the face. So you go up, down, up and down. Basically saying that is the bottom plane of the nose. Erase just a tiny bit, just to show that under that reflected light. And then sometimes I'll just kind of curve the edges up a little bit. That's the beginnings of our nose. So moving on, let's go to the eyes, because a lot of placement of the nose and like the rendering of it has a lot to do with how the eyes are. So I usually just go halfway between these points to get to the eyes. Whoops. By the way, I'm making these straight lines just by holding shift. If you hold shift and then make a line, it will automatically make it straight. Only to be affected by your pen pressure. What time is it? 4:23. Very good. So let's see. Let's lay down the eyes here. Here. These are really just placeholder eyes, just so you can see how it interacts. Here. So if you'll recall, back in the daily where we were going over faces, I just kind of threw in these eyebrows here, right? And then remember how I curved it? Remember how I came in and then went up like that? What that's doing is that is basically saying this line represents the shadow created by your eyelid, your under eyelid. And then what happens here is your cheek comes in like this and then connects to the nose. So if you were to draw a line up like that, it would connect there. And this triangle is going to be represented. Most of the time you can find this triangle. Like if I take off my glasses, hopefully it'll show it. Like, can you see how right here, the shadow of my eye goes down, and then the cheek cuts in right here, and then it creates that triangle of light. And then it casts against my nose there. That is what I'm representing with this shape right here. So think of that as the cheek, and that as the nose. And when you render it, usually I soften that line, but it's just good to know, where it's at. Again, other side. Basically, I usually don't like to render it on both sides. I usually just like to kind of keep it in mind. Keep in mind how this is working. Because basically the way that it goes is you think of like this flat plane here. Then these, if you were to shade both of these sides, see how that creates like the shape of like that up and then down and then back to the cheeks like that. That's basically what you're rendering out. But to start the nose, all you got to do is basically, I usually just shade one side. What's up with this lag? Come back. 1 second. And we're back. Moving on. It was going so well. Why did it have to do that? All right. So, as I was saying before I was so rudely interrupted by my crappy computer, I need to get a new one, was basically I don't render that shade on both sides because, the light's going to be hitting one end. And it looks weird if you render out the nose like that. So I just like to kind of have this, I'll lightly shade this in, and just keep in mind this line here that's representing the bridge of the nose. And depending on how close you bring in this line, it will make the nose look thinner. Because what you want to stay away from is having the nose look like it's like a popsicle stick, where it's like straight down, like it's a flat plateau. You can, I guess, but it's like that's a stylistic thing. You could do this and then go up like that, and then kind of shade in this area like that, right? But then this looks really like flat and strange, so try to stay away from that. What you want to do is think of more organic lines and more how the nose kind of comes to more of a tip as opposed to a flat plateau. So moving on, let us draw the nose from a profile. In fact, let me just grab a reference real quick. Alright, so here we have an example and a reference of an attractive nose. Now we will draw this, and I'll basically tell you about how we are going to lay down the lines to represent the different planes of this nose. So as I said before, right, you'll draw on the basic shape of it like this, right? But then where do you go from there? Basically, you'll throw in the nostril like this, right? It's not just like some hole like that, Notice it's pointed downward, So you want to think of the ellipse as going like that, The perspective is going that way. Then notice how it kind of like curves down, goes around, and it has this little indentation right here, right? But then remember how we were saying this line right here, the underplane. I'll draw that here too. I'll draw it usually up, down like that, and then up again, just to kind of represent that underplane, and then I'll kind of shade it in, and then erase a little bit, just to help me remember it. And then going up to the eye, remember how that triangle shape is here? Because it represents the cheek. That line can still be found here as well. So if you were to draw a line up like that, you would actually hit your eyeball. The eyeball is going to be right around here, like that. And that's how the eye looks from this angle. See? And then the other end of that triangle goes up like that. So see, it still actually exists here. And then that line is that line pretty much. Okay? Isn't that crazy? That actually helped me out a lot when I realized that, you know, it's mostly just like this cheek line and how it connects to the bridge of the nose and like how it changes planes. Like if I were to draw a line across his face, it would go like this around the cheek, then up and around the nose. Like that. Down and around the cheek. And then like the cheekbone goes here. And then this would come down and connect to the lips. Oh, whoops. And that would connect to the lips. And notice again, like the way that I work could be considered quite sloppy, I've realized. Because what I do is I lay down these thick lines, and then what I'll go and do is I'll go in and like sculpt away, you know, what I want the lines to be. And I'd like to think there's nothing wrong with that. And you know, basically the way I look at it is, if it feels good, do it. If it gets you the results, then do it. If you're comfortable with it, do it. So there you go. That's the basic idea there. Laying that down. And also remember, like, there's like a general curve that's happening here. Remember when I did this with my hand? Remember when I held up my hand and like think of this straight line from your chin to your nose? It should be that general line there. Like that. And again, not everybody's face is the same, so don't be afraid to deviate a tiny bit from that. But a general curve is happening here. And just like think of like the aesthetics and what you want your character's face to look like. Because if you make the forehead happen way back here like this, it's going to look a little like, I don't know, it's stylized, but I think that usually human foreheads, they come out just a tiny bit more like that. So think about that. And then we go back to the ear and placement and all that stuff, but that's still something I'm still trying to figure out exactly. We could go into a quick thing on ears though. However, let me teach you guys a quick trick on ears. This is bonus material before we conclude today's daily. Bonus. So a really easy way to remember the ear is, actually let's stick that back here. Really, really easy way to remember the ear is you'll lay down this shape, right? And this actually connects to the jaw. All right, so that's an easy way to remember that. So everybody knows this shape, right? But then where do you go from there? Where do the other shapes lie? How does it work? Okay, so first thing you're going to do is you create this thing, right? That's that little lobe thing that, you know, punk kids like to get that pierced, and it looks really painful. I would never do that. If you have one of those, definitely my hat's off to you, because that must have been really painful. So that's the first shape, right? You get that, and it's basically kind of just in the center. Then all you're going to do is make two C shapes. So you go C this way. And notice how leave this area thicker than this area. C shape like that, and then from here you draw another C shape. Out like that, and then go like that. Bam, look at that. Look at how easy that was. And that's pretty much how easy it is to draw an ear. And it's flowy and nice, looks nice, and it's fairly anatomically correct. There's also like a little thing in here like that, but I try not to. You know, once you start putting too many lines in there, again, you want to think about line economy. What looks nice is when there's just enough information there to communicate an idea and nothing more. I'm a simple guy. I'm a guy of simple taste. And then the hairline and all that stuff. But again, so that's a really easy way to remember how to draw an ear. That's a whole tangent on itself. So, hope you guys enjoyed that. So once again, I want to wrap up one more time with the frontal nose thingy. Whoops. Before we go. So basically what we've done here, I'll draw up here. So when you start, right, you're going to draw the nostrils, the bottom part of the nose, right, like that. and then these little things here. Then you're going to draw that underplane, which is going to come up like that, and down, up, and down. Alright, shade that in a little bit. That gives you the general idea of what's happening there. Then you're going to consider the bridge. And another thing that I like to do is like bring the bridge up like this. Instead of going straight up from here, I like to bring it in. So like think of like this shape. Like see how it kind of like on my nose it goes out and then it goes in into like this thin bridge area? You want to think about that. Think about it. It's never usually a perfectly straight line. I mean with girls, again, like on guys I would draw like more of like thicker noses and add more lines into here. But with girls, sometimes I just leave the noses to that. Sometimes that's all a girl's nose is. Like literally, I'll go back up here. And if I was drawing a girl's face, let me condense all these things. I would literally leave it at that. Because it's so simple. It conveniently communicates the information without having too many lines. It's line economy. And when you have line economy, that makes things look prettier, smoother, and younger. So always keep that in mind when you're drawing the girl faces. However, when you're drawing a guy's nose, you can feel free to draw all kinds of lines. You can make like a giant like bump in his, the bridge, and it comes up to these massive, eyebrows here, and like that. And I'm just basically just throwing this in. And he's an angry man. He's an angry man. Like that. Yeah. That is very sloppy, but you get the idea. And again, remember that triangle. Always throw in that triangle right there. Triangle that's being created by the bottom of the eyelid and the cheek. There. And like that. And again, when I render it, once more, when I render it, I usually try to keep one edge shadowed and the other one not so much, just very. Because see, it just kind of creates that shape. Like if you squint your eyes and look at it, notice how it creates the shape and the information is being communicated to you just with this shape here. Saying, okay, light is hitting, here and here, but it's, there's a plane change happening here. And then there's the nose. And then usually when I render the nose, I try to stay away from having such a hard transition because then again, it looks like it is, looks like it's a flat plane. So no flat planes. We want curvy planes and soft planes. Soft gradated planes. So, with that will wrap up today's daily. I still don't know why I call them dailies. It's a dream. I just wish they could be dailies. Maybe one day they can be. But that concludes today's show, episode 39, How to Draw Noses. So again, stay tuned for the instructions on how we will be conducting the World of Warcraft dance party. Let me know in the comments if you guys are excited for that. And with that, I will bid you all farewell. Thumbs up if you like it, thumbs down if you don't. I am Keenan Lafferty, and I will see you guys next week.